Hello YouTube, Anna Bella here, and today I'm just going to do a discretionary warning. This review main theme is childhood / teenage cancer, so if you are in any way sort of sensitive, don't watch. Just to let you know. Okay, I'm finally going to get round to doing a review on The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. I saw the film before I actually read the book, and I have a couple of things to say. I really enjoyed the film and the book, though I will say I think that there does need to be a warning either at the front of the book saying do not Google Imperial Affliction, because it's not a real book, because it isn't. There have recently been My Sister's Keeper, Fault in Our Stars, and Ways to Live Forever by Sally Nicholls. A lot of books that either feature teenage cancer or young person cancer or child cancer. And it's very, very difficult to actually do correctly, because very often you're sort of a lot of with these condition stories, for want of a better word, you write a character that has this certain condition / disability / terminal illness, and then everything gets dictated by it when their personhood kind of gets overridden. And My Sister's Keeper is an interesting one because they kind of get around that issue quite well, because you see Katie before she's ill. So you get a real feel for her as a person before cancer hits. Ways to Live Forever is interesting because it's about two boys, Sam and Felix, and they end up being sort of 11, 12-year-olds trapped with cancer. They never sort of get to the 15, 16, 17-year-olds that Augustus Waters and Hazel Grace managed to get to. Sam and Felix are trapped in that horrible trap where they're 12-year-olds. They're going to die at sort of 12, 13. So they're never going to be teenagers, but they're never going to be a child. So it brings to mind one scene in The Fault in Our Stars where Augustus Waters, he's in bed. This is heading towards the end, but he's wearing Winnie the Pooh. So it's almost as if his whole sort of late teenagerhood into adulthood has stopped, and he's become that 8-year-old boy again, and he's wearing his Winnie the Pooh stuff, or he's being fed something out of Winnie the Pooh cup, one or the other. The Fault in Our Stars is great. There are a few criticisms that I would like to say. First off, it does deal with the taboo subject of those with terminal illness having sex, and I'm sure it does happen, but just putting that out there. I'm also going to put out the theory Augustus Waters is 19 years old and he perhaps doesn't want to die a virgin, so maybe he's doing it to get laid. That's just another alternative perspective. Sorry for the continually sipping of tea, but I like my little fruit tea. It's strawberry and mango. Anyway, back to the Fault in Our Stars review. It's interesting because Augustus Waters first falls in love with another young woman who has brain cancer, and because she's got brain cancer, her ability to function as a person gets reduced, and it gets to the point where Augustus can't walk away, because if he does, then she doesn't have any social crowd and because he is one of the very few people that she is able to recognise, it would destroy her quality of life, and this mean that her death would have less meaning, which is kind of really strange. So he hangs around for that, and then Hazel Grace comes along, and Hazel Grace looks like this girl. So Freud would have a field day with Augustus Waters. I find there are parts of it that are absolutely hammer-hitting horrible. Augustus and Hazel Grace are some of the most pretentious teenagers ever put to page. But the whole metaphor with cigarettes is good, but also slightly worrying that Augustus does use. It's a great book. I recommend this sort of like 13 plus. Hey, if you're 11 and have read it, so what? It is an interesting book. It does cover a taboo subject, which is the whole business of those terminally ill having sex. But it's going to happen, because it almost happened in My Sister's Keeper between Kate and Taylor. There are a lot of issues that they raise. This one is clearly just Hazel Grace and Augustus Waters focused, though their families do sort of stay on the peripheral lines, but you get a feeling that the families almost are reluctant to come together because they know that they're going to have to come apart, so they never really do that. So it is weird because their relationship, Augustus and Hazel Grace's relationship, is recognised by them, but then it's not recognised by them. It's wanted, but then it's not wanted. So it's interesting how adults deal with the fact, because when the child is dying, they cease to be an adult. So the whole Hazel and Augustus thing fades away and he becomes a child again. And it's very difficult, I think, for adults to then sort of deal with the fact, oh, but they could have done this. They could have got married. And yeah, it's very likely that Hazel would probably die soon after this book. Sorry if I'm putting all these horrible things out there and being really critical and blah, blah, blah. But somebody's got to say it. It's an interesting conundrum. The whole Kiss in Anne Frank house, a lot of people have hit out about and said that shouldn't have happened. But actually, I would think Anne Frank would be all for that, considering she almost had or nearly had a relationship with Peter. Personally, I think Anne Frank would be okay with young love. I don't see it as a problem. I see Anne Frank said that, happiness and being kind was, more important than anything else. In short, that's her diary surmised. What is interesting, my Sister's Keeper focuses on, obviously, one family and the fractures and the issues within it. The older brother's dyslexic, but he gets overlooked because Kate has cancer. And then this family create a sibling to save said sibling. So there's a lot of ethical issues in there. So there's lots of should, could, would, where, when, who, what, how, why, when with these. 3-person babies, survivor siblings, should you do it, should you not? And novels are a great way to explore these concepts. Wasted Forever is also a film, but it's not as successful as this one or as that one, but there is a film. Read the book if you can. Also check out www.teenagecancertrust.org and hashtag Stephen's Story. And the way I was very lucky because I actually got to meet, I went to the V Inspired National Awards 2014 on Thursday the 27th of March. And I was very lucky because I actually got to meet and speak to Stephen Sutton, who has recently passed. He was a teenager with cancer and he raised over £1 million for the Teenage Cancer Trust. The Teenage Cancer Trust now have the ability to set up teenage cancer awards because it comes back to this very great issue that is in The Fault in Our Stars. Augustus Waters is 19, but in the end, before his death, he's in a bed and he's wearing Winnie the Pooh, or he's being fed something with Winnie the Pooh cup. And he's reduced to being the child. So his teenagerhood is completely sort of washed away by his family because it makes it easier for them. One thing that I did want to end this review with was I actually really enjoyed what the writer of Imperial Affliction said about cancer perks and things. It was really, really harsh, but I actually felt that it needed saying because at the end of the day, parents are the ones that get left behind when their child dies, and their child will always be a child. Even if you're 59 and your parent's 93, you are still their child. And it's a difficult concept for other adults to sort of get into their heads. It's to an older adult, if you're their child, you're always their child, so it's always going to be painful. I did highlight some stuff in here that I was going to read, but I actually am struggling to find it, which is really silly. Managed to find it, she says. Now, Augustus's friend has got cancer, but his cancer of the eyes. So he ends up blind, which is an interesting metaphor for the whole thing, which is really annoying because blindness in itself, he's become his impairment, and is cancer blindness, who knows. A day after I got my eye cut out, Gus showed up at the hospital. I was blind and heartbroken and didn't want anything, and Gus burst into my room and shouted, "I have wonderful news. And I was like, I don't really want to hear wonderful news right now. And Gus said, this is wonderful news. You want to hear? And I asked him, fine, what is it? And he said, you're going to live a good and long life filled with great and terrible moments that you can't even imagine yet. Isaac couldn't go on. Or maybe that was all he had written. And that's brilliant, because Augustus was able to understand that, yeah, you've lost your eyes and I've lost half my leg, but you're going to live, Isaac. You've got lots more to do, and I haven't. And then I love this one. Without pain, we could not know joy. And that's the best of the horrible tweet quotes that are around Augustus's house. Without pain, we could not know joy. And it's true. It's true. We must take the bitter with the sweet. And sometimes life is more bitter than sweet, unfortunately. But not everybody will have cancer. But bad things will happen. And sometimes they're not even evil or bad. Sometimes they just suck. And cancer is one thing that sucks. I'm going to read this quote that kind of sums up everything. The fact that life sometimes doesn't seem fair fuels my motivation. This is Stephen Sutton speaking. To make the world a better place. Bad things happen, but it's how you react to those things that define who you really are. And that's a brilliant quote by Stephen Sutton. Hashtag check him out at Stephen's Story. And also check him out at Stephen's Story. It's his Twitter page, which is still active. If you want to know more, because he was great. He's also got some YouTube. Well, there are some YouTube videos featuring him. He's awesome. Well, he was awesome, is awesome. It's very difficult to kind of say. He was diagnosed with incurable cancer. And he's now passed on, but he was awesome. And he's got a great legacy. And also a CBE from the Queen. Or is it an OB? No, I think it's a CBE. And I was very fortunate to meet him and hear him speak at the Inspired National Awards. He was awesome. So, yeah, read The Fault in Our Stars. It's a great book. It gets you thinking, even if they are the most pretentious teenagers known to man. Even if you might think Augustus Waters is just doing it to get laid. So what? Who cares? Have a great life, everyone. Bye.